Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Cloud Design Box live event. This is the first of our 3 summer live events. So we've got a summer training series. So this one, we're going to be looking at the end of school year wrap up, mainly for educators. So welcome to today's session. It's really lovely to have you along this morning. Presenting and answering the questions today is myself. I'm Keith. I'm one of the CDB trainers. I've got my colleague, Joe, who's also another trainer. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Keith.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on the call this morning. We're all excited, ready to show our viewers some nice ways of being able to wind up this year's academic year.
Definitely. Hopefully give some tips to the teachers.
Well, we've nearly made it. Only a couple of weeks left to go with the term, so it's downhill all the way from here. Also on the call, we've got Tony Phillips, our founder and Microsoft 365 consultant. So good morning, Tony.
Morning, Keith. Yeah, very excited about today's session.
Yeah, really excited, Tony. Thanks. Yeah, we've got some really good things to show this morning. So yeah, it's hopefully it'll all go very smoothly for us today. And we've also got Darren Hemming, our Chief Operating Officer, as well on the call.
Morning, Keith. You all right?
Yeah, morning, Darren. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Tony and Darren will be fielding any questions that you may have this morning. So you may see across the top of your screen the Q&A area. If you please want to click on that, that will open up the Q&A. Please feel free to drop any questions in there, and Tony and Darren are on hand to answer those questions for you. So the end of year process. Let's talk about Cloud Design Box before we actually get into the session.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit too excited with the buttons here this morning. So Cloud Design Box, who are we? We're Microsoft partners. We've been around for about 8 years now, just really humble beginnings in Hull, and we've managed to grow over the past 8 years. And we're Microsoft partners, and we currently support over 450 schools globally. So you know, we're really getting ourselves out there at the moment. We look after academies, colleges and multi-academy trusts, including 7 Microsoft Showcase schools. So yeah, we're really doing well out there at the moment. So it's absolutely lovely. So for the end of year process today, we're going to be looking at how we can help you manage with the SDS. So along with our SharePoint intranet, assignment tools and other services to help teachers save time, because essentially that's what we like to do. We also provide the following solutions to make the end of year easier for teachers and students. So we do have centralized subject sites to avoid moving and copying teaching resources. So with the Cloud Design Book product, we bring everything together into a centralized area. You don't need to move things from one year to the next, from one team to the next over the summer holiday. So we're actually saving loads of time with our product. We've also got a managed rollover process. So we'll archive all your old teams for you. So that is really quite something. You don't need to do that anymore. We'll also create your next year's teams as well. So once they're created, you as a teacher can reach into the future. You can activate your teams, you can spin up your class notebooks, and also you can potentially set up your assignments for the next academic year. If you tune in onto our next session, we'll be able to show you how that happens. You've got a managed SDS service, so we'll set up and support the automating classes from the MIS data. So we've got we'll sort all that for you. We all set it up from the background. We've also got a class dashboard and time machine. So when you do come back in the new academic year and you do need to access your previous year's teams, you can do that very simply by using our time machine. So for the agenda for today, we're going to look at creating announcements. I'm going to take you through that. Joe will then take you through moving and storing pages in the class notebook. Then back over to me. We're going to look at how we can wrap up assignments as well towards the end of the academic year. Just have a nice little tidy up in that area. Then Joe will cover how we're going to move student work into our OneDrive for 2-year coursework. This is a question that often crops up on training sessions that myself and Joe have. And at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A. So let's get into creating announcements. So I'm just going to drop into Teams and we'll see what happens in there. So today I'm working in a history year 11 group, and I want to create an announcement. So it's coming to the end of the year. and I need to be able to get an announcement across my class and maybe other classes as well. I might need some tech that needs returning, or in fact we may be having an end of school end of term meetup. And to do that, I can create an announcement. So I'm in the conversations area and I'm in my general channel. And at the bottom here, I'm just going to select new conversation. And when I come into the conversations area, if you notice across the bottom, we have some of these icons. So I've got something called a formatting tool. So a formatting button here, letter A with a crayon next to it. And if I click on that, that opens up a larger area at the bottom of the conversations page here. I can then go into where it says new conversation. If I click down, I can then select announcement. So I've got a nice big bold area where I can put a title in there, so I can put a headline in, and then I can put some text beneath that. So I'm going to type in my headline, and it's going to be called something like return your resource. So I've lent out a whole host of resources to my students. So it could be things like library books, bits of tech, for example. It's coming to the end of term and I want all that stuff back. So I've put my headline in and I can actually change the banner colors here. So I've got a nice little drop down and change it to a purple color if you like, or I can put something a little bit snazzy in the back there. I can put an illustration in there, or I can also pull in an image as well. So I can bring in my own pictures if you like. Please make sure if you put any pictures in there, they do cope with being stretched because they do have to go across that banner. However, Microsoft do provide us with some really nice little illustrations at the back here. So I'm going to select that and we've got some pre-made banners that we can put in. So we've got some general ones here. So a nice little dragon picture, for example, loud hailer. We've also got some classes ones, so some more academic based banners. And we've also got some clubs and activities. So these are really plenty to go at. So I'm going to select general, and today it's going to be an announcement. So I'm just going to select the loud hailer, hit the done button, and that puts that onto the top there for us. So that's made my banner up. Then need to put a subheading in. So in here, I'm going to put in please return your borrowed resources by July 21st. There's a date. There we go. And beneath that, I then need to work out who it's going to. So if I was to post it directly into my channel now, that's fine. The history group may get to see it, but it's always good practice that if we're creating any announcements within Teams is to @mention. So we hit the @ symbol, and because I want it to go to everybody, so I want it to go to my whole history class, I'm just going to type in the word team, and then it gives me the option here to select my history class. So what that now means is that once I get to send it, all of my history class here, all the members of that, all the students will then receive a notification, their activity bell in the top left-hand corner. A little red dot will light up in there for them, and they know regardless of where they are within Microsoft Teams, so they could be actually working in their English group, they'll see that myself, the history teacher, has sent a message out to them. Beneath that, I can put some additional text, loads and loads of space for text. So I'm just going to just put text here. So this could be anything like, in this case of return the resource, I may want to put a date, time, place where they can drop the resource off. But at the minute, I'm just going to leave that for text here just for ease of time, really. Across the top of my announcement, what I've got here is that at the moment, everyone can reply. Well, in a second, I'm going to push this across multiple classes. So what I want to do is I'm just going to turn off that everyone can reply. I'm just going to keep it so that myself and the moderators can reply to that. So because if it's going to lots and lots of students, I don't want lots of replies to it, basically. So I'm just going to keep that just locked down for the time being. So I'm just going to keep it to myself and moderators can reply to that. Now, at the moment, this is going to be going out to my history group. However, because I teach in several other classes, I'm going to push it out to other areas as well. So by clicking on this post in multiple channels area, I get the option to select additional channels. So this is all the teams that I'm a member of. So I've got an all staff channel here. I'm just going to close that down. Here's my history group, but also I teach a physics group as well. So I'm going to send that out to my physics year 10 students as well. And so by clicking different classes or different channels here, so I'm also a member of an English group. However, they've not borrowed anything off me this year, so it's just my physics group and my history team here. I'm just going to leave it at those, and then all I do is once I've made my selection, I select update. So as you can see now, it's going across to my history group, and it's also going across to my general channel over in my physics. If I've made a mistake, just by clicking on the cross there, I can actually drop those, remove those classes if I need to. Now that I'm all happy with that, all I need to do then is I can just check it, missing any words. That looks pretty good. All I'm going to do then is hit the send paper plane icon here, just in the bottom right hand side. And that will then post that out to my channel. And all the members of my history group and also my physics group will then receive a notification in their activity bell. So it's just a really nice way of being able to get a message out across multiple areas quickly, because it might be a couple of days before I teach the class again. But also you can use this in all staff teams as well. So if you're announcing maybe an end of term function and you're inviting other staff teams in, so I could be part of humanities and I want to invite all those teachers, and I can also bring in additional teams as well. Anything to add, Joe?
Yeah, loads of things. I absolutely love that. I mean, one thing for a start, you can see at the bottom, people can reply. So I guess historically you would have sent that as an email and then you get loads of threads and inboxes, but now people can just chat under there, ask questions if they're not clear about it. And also you can actually edit that and recall it, which is difficult with an email. So if you've got a list of resources that you want back and then some two get returned, you can update the message and notify everyone again. So it's just so much better than sending emails, and really handy for tying up loose ends at the end of term. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, so as at the moment, as I've got it turned off, but as Joe said, if I wanted to actually invite people to reply, I've recalled the message back, I've hit the edit button, and I've now actually put in a location where I want my resources to be brought back to. And also, there we go, everyone can now reply to that. And all I need to do is click the tick, and that's reposted it back out as an edited item. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Brilliant, Joe. You're dead right. Cutting down email. So again, which it really is bringing everything into Teams, and it's all that really kind of instant, real-time kind of access for everybody. Really, really good.
No more. Please ignore my previous email.
I know. I've tried to recall emails before, Joe, and it's an absolute nightmare. So with Teams, it's an announcements absolutely brilliant, very, very quick. So it's lovely. Joe, do you want to go over and start to show the notebook side of things?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of something to show. I'll just share my screen. For the class notebook users out there, or people who are interested in the class notebook, just check you can see my screen okay there.
I'm seeing it now, Joe. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm blue across the top. We're going to look very similar. But you can see here, I'm in the same team that Keith was just in, but I've just navigated up to the class notebook area. If you're not familiar with class notebook, it's this great space where we can put lots of different content, mixed media, text. You can even draw on it with touch screens. So it's based on OneNote, but we have this great like student-teacher relationships going on and different permissions in different areas. So every student has their own notebook that only they can see, and the teacher. We have a content library where teacher can post things like whiteboard notes or handouts that students can just read and they can't edit. And then we also have collaboration space, so everybody can work together there. So all students and teachers all together, maybe working on, in this example, a research project. So you can see through the year, you're probably going to get a lot of original material. And we're talking about here about what happens next year. So how are we going to safeguard that material, keep it safe, not only for next year, but maybe we just want to show it to everybody in the class. Great work that's going on in here in all these different areas. So I'm going to say thanks to you, Keith, for showing me copy to the content library. We're going to look at a tool called Copy to Content Library. Initially looking at it, I was thinking, right, I get what this does, but why is it useful? and now we're coming up to the end of the year, it's quite apparent. So I'm going to show a couple of examples. So in our collaboration space, this is the area where everybody can work together. If you can see that on my screen, I'm just going to drop down. We've been working on Elizabethan England. And here all the students have been working together on the page. So I'm just going to close this here so you can see a little bit. Maybe we can zoom out. You can also expand your notebook in Teams if you're feeling a little bit lost there, because you can take up as much screen space as you like. So it's a really great tool. Big blank canvas. So we've all been chucking information on here, me and the students studying the Spanish Armada. And I think that's a great piece of work. I want to keep it frozen in time for everybody to review, but I might also want to use it next year. So where can I put it to keep it safe? So that brings us on to some class notebook tools. So if I navigate up to the class notebook tab at the top, we've got lots of handy tools in here, like your distribution, etc. But we're going to look at copy to content library. This is a collaboration space. So technically everybody can work on this together, and it's currently open and students could come in and add more content. So first of all, I want to lock it. So I'm actually going to go to manage notebook first. And there is a little toggle in here and I can lock my collaboration space here. So that just stops anybody else adding any content on. We're kind of happy with it as it is and we don't want anybody to delete anything. So just as a precaution, I'm just going to lock that first, and that keeps all my students from collaborating there. You can switch this on and off as you need through the year, because obviously you'll need to unlock it again when you do some more work. But I'll just close that, and now this space is essentially locked. But what if I want to keep it? Maybe I want to keep it somewhere where students can look at it, and next year, what if I want to use that in another class, or this class is moving to a new class and I want to move it into there? So I'm going to go back to class notebook again. And the best place to keep any work like this is the content library. And I'm just going to click copy to content library here. And when that loads, it should show me the different spaces I've created. So I've made this little area here. We've got class pages, and this is where I want to keep all my exemplary work and things that I might potentially use next year. So I'm just going to click on there and then click next. Oops. Now you can select additional note. Oh, hang on a second. I'm just going to go back to previous step, class pages. Next. You can choose other notebooks where you want to copy it, but I want to keep it in this notebook itself. Apologies there. So this is History 11C. I'm just going to copy it across into the content library. So whenever you do things like this, like distribution and copied in class notebook, it continues to work in the background. So you can navigate away. If you're moving a lot of content, it can take a bit of time, and it will actually let you know once it's complete in Teams. And so I can close that if I wanted to. So doing this live, let's hope it does it fairly quickly so I can show you. So now if I navigate back to here, we should have, or it's in the process of moving that content. I've actually renamed it here. And it will move into this section once it's ready, but it's obviously still working away in the background there.
That's so really cool, Joe, isn't it? That you can go have a cup of tea, you can go do some teaching, some marking, whatever, and that will just quietly happen in the background. And that will pop up in the end. And then presumably, what we're doing here is we're taking something that was in a collaboration space, or I guess equally it could have been some really good work that a student did in one of their pages, and we're moving that back into the central place so that we can keep it in that place and potentially later on move it into different class notebooks as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really, really great. What I did there, I'm just going to create a new section. I'm going to show you it again because we're doing a bit of back and forth before the session. In this example, I'll show how to move some student work as well. Now, these are all private to the students, so they can't see one another's work, but there might be times where I want to sort of show that off to everybody. So in this case, in Susan's folder down here, she's done a really great piece of work on an assignment that was actually set through the class notebook. And she's done a really good logbook project here. There's loads of information. It's really detailed. And I'd like to use that actually in future to show other students in other classes as well. So again, I can then make sure I keep that somewhere safe. I'm just going to navigate up to copy to content library. And I've just created a new section there because there we go. So we've got student work, and that's where I want to keep it for future. I'm going to click next. And I'm going to keep it in this same notebook. So you are free to then move it across to different content libraries using that tool. There we go. So our class pages has moved 1 minute ago, and now this one's moving across. So let's just jump back up. You can see there's class pages. Oops. Top one. I've renamed some sections here. That's the problem. And there's my student work, which is now moving across from Susan's folder. Ah, brilliant. Okay.
It'll come, Joe.
Yeah,
sometimes it can run a little bit steady. So we often say that when you're actually spinning up a class notebook and you're moving content forward in the new academic year, never do it 5 minutes before your lesson is due to start. So
never do it in front of a live audience.
I guess it depends how much content's in there. So if you've got like a bit of text and a picture of Elizabeth, you know, then that's not going to take too long. But if you're doing things like embedding like PowerPoint documents and Word documents and PDFs on the actual page, obviously that's going to take a lot longer because there's just more stuff to move.
Yeah, it's excellent. So obviously that once you've moved things out of the collaboration area and put it into your teacher's area, when you come to spin up your class notebook in the new academic year, you do get the option of being able to add content from previous notebooks.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously we'll show that on the next event on the 19th of July.
Absolutely.
But, yeah,
and it should have moved by then.
Hopefully, it's going to have a whole of summer to shift over.
Going slow for me. That could be part of the problem. So.
But yeah, I think there's a couple of issues around Teams this morning. I think we've seen one of our guys drop out of a meeting unexpectedly. But yeah, thanks, Joe. I mean, that is really something else. I mean, Class Notebook, it's so unbelievably versatile. You know, we absolutely love this area. Within Teams, and again, despite the fact it's a little bit steady this morning, normally a lot of teachers and students get so much out of this area within Teams. So yeah, thanks, Joe. Anything else further to add, or are we just going to let it keep on spinning across? It should be.
I'll let it spin.
Keith, can I throw in a little something? Because obviously everything Joe's showing today is in the context of class notebooks. So you're moving things around inside a class notebook, and then on the next session we'll be showing how to move things from one class notebook into a class notebook in a team for next year as well, so you don't lose that content that you've made. But one of the things that we like to do as well with our product, because we centralize resource areas, is we've got this notion of a topic notebook. It's just a name that we made up, and essentially that's just a OneNote document that sits in a centralized area. But you can also take that really good exemplar work or you know, notes that you've created and actually put it outside of class notebook in just OneNote generally. And then you kind of don't have to do the move because you can just reference those topic notebooks. But it's horses for courses. It depends what you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a very versatile tool of what you can do with Notebook. It's just learning your way around all these different tools that it has.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I always find with Class Notebook, it's as big as your imagination at the end of the day, and we do get to see some absolutely beautiful class notebooks that other schools and teachers have put together. So yeah, it really is a very, very creative space for everybody.
But one of the things I like about it, because obviously Class Notebook, what we're talking about here is teacher created content largely, and also work that students collaborate on together. but it's also just a really great place for students to take notes. And if you are a school that's moving towards, you know, one-to-one devices, or you've got the bring your own device thing going on, then you can really kind of reduce the usage of paper exercise books, and start to use something like OneNote for note taking instead. So it's not just the teacher activity that's important in OneNote, it's what the students do there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Darren.
Back to you, Keith.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Right. I'm just going to just very quickly bring my screen across. Let me just hit that button there. Okay, so this next bit, we're just going to talk about assignments and how we can think about tidying up our assignments at the end of the academic year. So I've just dropped back into my history year 11 class again, and I'm now I've just dropped out of the general channel where we made our announcements earlier on, and I've come up to the assignments area here. My view is just set out maybe slightly different from other people's. You may get the assignments tabs across the top of the screen along with the class notebook and the grades and reflect area, but just for ease of use today, I've kind of got myself in what's called a grid view, so everything for me is just down on the left hand side. So I've come into assignments, and first of all, we're going to look at how we can actually take action in the student view as a teacher. So it was a nice little bit of functionality that Microsoft added into Teams this academic year. And what it enables you to do as a teacher is to be able to go into an assignment and actually turn in a piece of work on behalf of a student. So let's get into it. So at the moment, what I've got is I've got an assignment at the top here. It's a little bit of extra work that I've given out to 2 students. So I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to go in. So initially, I sent it out to 2 students. So Susan was one of them, and Alonso here is the second. So Susan's done the work, and she's already turned that in, and it's been potentially graded and sent back to her. However, Alonso here hasn't handed the work in. I know as a teacher that he's done the work, but unfortunately, he's not able to attend school for the last week of term. And I still want to grade his work because I know that he's done some really interesting stuff in there. So what I can do is just click on anywhere on this bar here. This will then go into the work. So here's Alonso, and this is the work that he's done. So it's quite extensive. However, I now want to actually turn it in and officially grade that. So to do that, over on the right hand side here in this sidebar, which is called Speed Grader, beneath the work I have this option here. It's called Take Action in Student View, and by clicking on it, it drops me through directly into what Alonso would see. So this is actually the student. This is what the student sees within assignments. So as you can see here, there's the work. So there was a bit of reference material. That's the work that Alonso's done, and he's also had the opportunity to add further if you wanted to. So you might want to put some pictures in there or a spreadsheet or whatever. However, the work is not handed in. So I now, as a teacher, because I'm actually viewing the assignment as Alonso, I now as a teacher can select hand in. Get a nice little graphic there, and off we go. So what's now happened is that I've now turned that work in on behalf of Alonso. So all I need to do now is I can go back, select the back button. That takes it back to the speed grader. And that's coming through nice and steady. But what I'm just going to just very quickly do is I'm just going to close this pane, just take us right back to the assignments homepage now. And as you can see, the status here has now been turned in by a teacher. So if it had been turned in by a student, it would just say turned in. However, because I've done it myself, it now actually says turned in by a teacher, and all the way through the grading process, it will still hint or tell me that it was me that turned that in. So what it now means is that I can actually go into that piece of work and I can now formally grade it. So it means that Alonso's completed that piece of work, despite the fact he's not at school, and I can now give him some feedback and I can also give him his points for that piece of work. And all I need to do then, click return. That goes back to Alonso as now completed. But more importantly, because I've been able to officially grade that, that will then show now through on the grades tab, and Alonso will also be able to see that piece of work as well that he's completed.
I suppose, Keith, crucially, crucially as well, any other systems that are picking up those marks. So, for example, parents might be looking at that and wondering
Absolutely.
how their kids are doing. So we know that we've got a web part. We call it the student assignment search, that you can search for individual students and see what assignments they've been given and what they've done. And of course, there are other third-party tools as well that are going to be showing that information to parents.
Yeah, absolutely, Darren. And and it's just nice to be able to round off that piece of work. So Alonso, is an excellent student. He's been into every single lesson. He's participated. He's joined in with everything. He's done his homework on time. However, just it gets to the end of term, for some reason, he's not been able to attend school. Could be illness. Could have gone away on holiday early for whatever. And he's and why should he miss out? So it's just really nice, nice way of being able to get in there and take action on behalf of the student and then still give him that formal grade. So yeah, it's a really nice little thing that Microsoft put in there over the past few months. Also, the other thing I want to do is just have a little bit of a tidy up as well within assignments. So again, another little new bit of functionality that came in is that we can actually start to mark assignments as inactive. So let me just drop into my past due area here. These are all assignments that I've set over the past few months, and there's a few that have been returned by our students and others that haven't. So I've got 28 students in my class, and as you can see, only a couple have done some of the work here, but not a problem. I might not have got round to grading them yet. So before I start marking some of my assignments as inactive, I can just drop into my ready to grade tab, and so I've got some stuff here. I probably just need to just catch up on a little bit of marking. However, it's coming to the end of year, and some of these assignments may have only just been things like read-only assignments. So for example here, I've got a read a chapter 5 of Elizabeth and the Court. That's all I wanted to do, as I just wanted my students just to go into the assignment, and all I wanted them to do was basically read that assignment, just read chapter 5. That's what I wanted them to do, and we're just going to discuss that on our next lesson. So nothing too heavy for my students to do. However, what it does mean is that because there's no grading or anything associated to it, it's just kind of hanging there in the system. So I can do one or two things. I can delete it if I like, which is fine. However, what I can do is I can just go into the assignment, and if I just come over to the right hand side, I've got my more options button here, the 3 dots. If I select that, what I can do is mark it as inactive. So it doesn't delete the assignment, so it doesn't get rid of it, and I can still actually recycle this again next year, which we'll talk about on July the 19th, but I can select mark as inactive. So what that does is it'll actually shut it down. It was due yesterday. It will then take it out of my past due area, and what it will do then is it will then place it into the returned area, which is the extra assignment there. Look. Now, also the beauty of this was a read-only assignment. However, if some of my students have actually done the work and I've graded it, I don't want to delete that assignment, because there's always a risk that potentially that grading could disappear. However, by marking it as inactive, the students that have actually graded the work still keep that grade, if you like. It's not deleted, nothing disappears off the system. So if some students haven't got round to doing the work, that's fine. They just don't get the grade. That's a conversation they're going to have with me as a teacher. However, by using that mark as inactive button, it doesn't wipe away that work that's already been done, and it doesn't wipe away the grade either. So again, it just packs that up, it just makes that inactive, and it just puts it to one side, and it passes it from either the ready to grade area or the past due, and it just puts everything into returned. It just tidies everything up really nicely just for that end of term.
I suppose, Keith, thinking about it as a teacher, some assignments are going to be more important than others. So some of them are going to be proper summative assessment. You know, you're going to take that, you're going to put it into your grade book in your MIS or SIS. Whereas other assignments are just kind of, hey, here's a really good resource. We recommend that you read this. It's still a good thing to post it as an assignment, because then it does pop up in that news feed for students. You're not just shouting at them in the corridors, read some books. You know, you actually give them something specific. But some of those, it doesn't really matter if they fall away. So you can kind of declutter yourself, really, especially as you say at the end of term.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, because we've not deleted that assignment, it will also then sit in the background, so that when I come back in the new academic year, I can actually recycle that assignment and schedule it for some time in the future when we come back in September. So again, nothing's lost. So again, in a few months' time, I might actually want my students to actually reread that chapter with a fresh year group, and I can just re-roll that out to my class in the new academic year. So again, we talk about scheduling on our next session. Really handy. Joe, how are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. I really like that, Keith, and what Darren said about taking, you know, if you're analysing assignments, how well students are doing, and then it says overdue for lots of things, it's not going to look good on the student. If it is that kind of work that isn't graded, it's really important to close it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, good. I couldn't get over my technical issue, but it has moved now. But we're going to show it in the next session, so I think I'm going to go over that again. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was adding shortcuts to OneDrive and why this might be useful.
Cool. You're sharing your screen, Joe?
Yeah, coming up now.
Cool.
So just to prove to everyone, it has moved. There it is in our content library. But what I'm going to do now is sort of look at the student perspective. So same team again, but now we're logged in as Susan, who did that work in the notebook. We can see here we've got a nice announcement and our notification that Keith put in earlier. And I'm just going to talk a bit about files in Teams. So we're going to be moving files across potentially to new teams, and we already talked about centralized subject areas to kind of get around that issue. So if you're familiar with Teams, you'll know that in the general channel, there is a files tab. And this is the student view. They can see class materials, anything you drop in there, they can see it, but they can't edit. And every student gets their own folder. But this is an additional Cloud Design Box feature. So every student gets their own space to save work there as well. So that's visible to the teacher and the student. So the Files tab is great. We can put things that we're working on through the year in that specific team. But then obviously when we roll over and start again and have new classes, it's a lot of work for the teacher having to drop everything in class materials in here for the students for the new year. So we do have that tab up at the top, which is our centralized subject area. This is looking into an area of SharePoint that's there year on year. And all of the history teachers, this is a history class, can work on that content. And when next year's classes get created, so in this example, year 11, they just automatically get this tab that looks into that area, and we're not having to migrate content. So that's really useful.
Joe, that's part of our product, isn't it? That's those centralized subject areas, resource areas. If you don't have our product yet, you can do it just by putting all your resources inside class materials. But then you're going to have to do a lot of file copying. You know, if you've got multiple classes that you're running in the current year, then you're going to have to put the same resources in all those classes, and then you're going to have to move all that stuff into your new class teams in the new year. Whereas if you can put them in a centralized place, as Joe showed us here, then that saves you time, and it also drives up quality, because it means the head of department can keep an eye in that centralized place on the quality of all those documents.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic tool, big time saver, but then it doesn't make the files area obsolete whatsoever. You know, we still want to put things in here just for this class. But in this example, we get asked quite a lot about students who, especially over the summer break, may want to access that work. Having their own student work folder is great in the team because then the teacher can see it. But a lot of students are used to working from OneDrive, and the big reason is it's really accessible from lots of places. So I'm just going to show an example of a student who wants to, this could be on any break really, wants to work on that content, but they want to be able to get to it easily from anywhere. And in the next session, we'll show as well how if you do this, they can then easily move it into a new team for new academic years. So Susan, she's got her own student work folder. She opens this up. She can only see her own. So it's private between her and the teacher, which is great. I can do coursework in here. My teacher can log in and see it at any time. However, I do want to be able to access this via OneDrive. So some good tips if students want to use this, or teachers could use it in other areas of SharePoint as well if they want to work from home or over breaks and things like that, is to perhaps create a new folder just for ongoing work in the first place, so then it's really clear what that work is. So in Susan's folder, she's just clicking on new there. She's going to create a new folder and she's going to call this GCSE history coursework, something that she wants to work on and she wants it to follow through to next year as well. So she's going to create that folder. Now there might be lots of different work that I've worked in here on over the year. I don't necessarily need to take it all with me. There might be sort of notes, odd files and things. So what I'm going to do next is just grab the things I really need to access over the break. So she's got an ongoing research project here, a Word document. She's just going to grab that, and you can easily click, left click, drag and drop, and it'll jump into there. So I held my mouse down for a little bit too long there, and it actually jumped in the folder. She can go back here, and you can see it's moved now. So I'll go a little bit quicker this time. I'm just going to grab this other Word document, left click, drag, wherever I get the dotted lines, let go of my mouse, and then it should move. Okay. So I've essentially tidied up my work folder. I've got a specific area for coursework. So now I'm going to add a shortcut to OneDrive for that, and it's going to make it easier for me to work on it no matter where I am or what device I'm on over the break. So to do that, I'm just going to select the folder, and you should see a shortcut up, a link up here that says add shortcut to OneDrive. And if I click that, take a second or two, and now that is in Susan's My Files area in OneDrive. So we can quickly get to that immediately with this link here. But if she were to navigate to OneDrive at any time, she'll see, if we go to My Files here, there should be a folder now, and we know it's a shortcut because it has this little link.
Now, Joe, so, I know where. Sorry, I know where a lot of people get confused. Is they think, oh, I've sent that to OneDrive now, so now that's in my OneDrive, but it's not, right? The content, the file is actually still inside that team. It's just you now basically have a link to it, a shortcut to it in the OneDrive. I use this myself for in the world of business, because when I have some expenses I've done, you know, I've gone out for a meal and I want to charge that to the company, I can literally on my phone just take a picture, send that into my OneDrive app on my phone, and actually not send it into my OneDrive, but go through OneDrive all the way into the place where the accountants are going to pick it up. And students could do the same. So say you're doing a piece of work for art, and it's not really a written piece of work or even digital, but you've done some sculpture or something, and you just take a picture of that, and you're uploading that as evidence of your work, and then you could just drop it into that folder using that link.
Yeah, and I think another great advantage that you sort of touched on there is if you were to take that away to a personal device and work on it there and then move it, you've got that potential of losing it, duplicating it several times, not knowing which one's up to date. Here we know that its original location is in the class team where the teacher can see it. So any changes I make, there's going to be no confusion or lost coursework, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, and that's why it's a good idea to do this in a folder as well. So rather than saying, oh, here's a Word document, I'm going to send that to OneDrive, and maybe you get a different copy of it, by sending a link to the folder, you've basically created that folder that you can use as a kind of a regular swap space. And anytime you want to move something from one site to another, you drop it into there, and that gives you an easy way to access that wherever you are, whether that's in a class team or another kind of team, or you're working in OneDrive or on a mobile phone, wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, well, I've got a quick short video, and I'll just talk through it because I can show you all the different ways you can get into this OneDrive now. And if you think of that from a student perspective over the break, they might be borrowing a laptop, they might be only have access to a browser, not the Teams app. It makes it really versatile. So I'll just quickly show a quick clip, and I'll talk through the different logins to OneDrive here. So it's just going to make their life easier. So the first one, maybe I don't have Teams apps and things like that. I'm borrowing a machine and I just want to work on my coursework. I can just open up a browser here, type in OneDrive. There we go sign in, and I'll use my school account. And when I log in, again, it will take us to that OneDrive space, and any shortcutted files will be sat in there. If you've got OneDrive on your machine, maybe Susan does have her own machine at home, she can use the OneDrive app. So this is just using Windows Explorer. She's logging in with her account, and once she gets that synced up to her machine, she'll see that shortcut in her OneDrive folder on a file explorer. So here it is, and there's the shortcut link. And then finally, students like mobile devices. So here's a mobile phone. This is iOS. We're just downloading the OneDrive app. Takes up a lot less room than, say, downloading Teams. Again, we just sign in, and we'll see those shortcuts there too. So Susan can work from pretty much anywhere as long as she's got an internet connection and some sort of device, whether it's got apps or not.
Do you know what, Joe? I don't think it's going to be very long before people are doing this on their watches, right?
Yeah, I'm sure people can do that. I don't have a smartwatch, but I imagine people do. Yeah, definitely, 100%.
I mean, this is this is a real good way of being able for students to be able to carry over a little bit of work. I know a lot of the training courses that I do, one of the big questions is, what about year 10 to 11 and year 12 to 13 students? If they've got like a long-term project that's going to be carrying over for the 2 academic years, this is a really good way of being able to for students to be able to carry that work across.
Yeah, definitely.
So they can still keep the work in last year's team. They don't have to move it necessarily. No, as long as they've sent they've made one of those folders in there saying, stuff I want to take forward, or coursework as Joe called it there. And you've got maybe another folder in this year's class team. Just put the year on it so you know which year it belongs to. And then both of those folders are in OneDrive, so you can just move stuff between them really easily, or just access both of them.
Yeah, but I would say as well, and we'll cover this in the next session, you do not need to do this with all of your work, because we have some handy tools to look back into last year's team, so nothing is ever lost. But I just think in this context of where I want to work something over summer, and I'd like it to kind of follow me around with my OneDrive, this is a really good fix.
So it is those kind of GCSE coursework contexts, isn't it? You started some work in year 10, that might have got marked and graded, but then when you come back in year 11, you actually pick up that same document and just add more to it. You get that with BTEC as well and things. So this is just quite an easy way actually to keep that snapshot, because that was a moment of time. You did that work, it was finished, it was graded. Keep it in the old place, but then make a copy of that and take it into your new team and start working on it for your year 11 or your year 13 work.
Yeah, absolutely. So following, do you want to add anything, Keith?
No, sorry, no, carry on, Joe.
Well, I was just going to say that's everything we had to show, but I'm sure some people have some questions about that. So if you could show our questions page for us, Keith.
Yeah, I'm just going to drop
we'll
it
open
in.
the floor.
If
you can ask us about what we've shown today. You can ask, especially Tony and Darren, about our product and what we offer. And if you've got questions in general about Microsoft in education and you want to know more, please fire away.
Thanks, thanks, Joe and Keith. Yeah, a few questions have come in, so I'll just read them out and a couple of the answers. I think one of them was from Mary. Is the ability to see student work folders part of the basic teams or in your products? So that is part of our products. We create student folders for all the classes as part of what we do. The teacher can see all those folders, but the student can only see their own. So I know that people use things like assignments when they've got assessed work, might use class notebook for written work. What we tend to find is there's things like media files and PowerPoint presentations and stuff that doesn't really fit into those two categories. That what ends up happening is a student does it in their OneDrive, clicks a share button and shares it with their teacher. But to realistically do that, you know, in a class of 30 students, it can be really tricky to manage where all those links go and a bit messy. So the idea behind those folders is it keeps everything really nicely within the context of the class team. Both teacher and the student can see that folder at the same time. So yeah, that yes,
and not I was going to say not everything's markable as well. Not everything needs marking, Tony. So if it's a piece of work, a piece of coursework, yeah, the teacher might come in and mark that particular piece of work. If you really want to grade stuff and, you know, give it due dates and things, then you'd probably use the assignments tool more than that. But it's just great for classwork and for student research as well. You know, if they're going out on the internet and they're finding documents to help them and snips of things, that's just a really good place to put those resources as they're learning. And it's important for the teacher to be able to see that the student's doing that research work, but they don't necessarily have to grade every bit of it.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of the student work folders, it may be different subjects use different things inside teams. And if you're a media teacher or a drama teacher, got, you know, big video files you want to share, they don't really fit into assignments or class notebooks. This is another way of accessing those documents. We had another question come through, more of a technical one. When teams are archived at the end of the academic year, can students still access those teams, or is it just staff who can access archive teams? So teams disappear at the end of the year. They sort of vanish when they get archived off, but they are still there, both for staff and students. So the membership freezes in time at the end of the academic year, at that point that you go through the cleanup process and archive them off. And they're still accessible if you go into the settings inside Teams. It can be a bit fiddly. We've got a video on it. I'll share that in the post. But they are still available in read-only mode for staff and for students. However, they're quite difficult to get to. And again, what Keith showed right at the beginning was what we do as part of our product is we have a little time machine option. You can quickly go back to a previous academic year and access those archive teams just really quickly and easily. So hopefully that makes the job a bit easier.
It's all there, isn't it, Tony? Any kind of messages and conversations you had in those teams, they're still there, but that's become read-only to students. The class notebooks are still there. You can still open those and see what work was done in the class notebooks, but they're read-only to students. And the assignments are still there. You can see what assignments were set and what work the students did and see the files that they attached to those assignments, but it's read-only to students. So it's all there. It's just like kind of preserved in glass.
Yeah,
I've shared that blog post as well in the chat, so you can have a read up of that and how that process works.
We've looked at a couple of tools here, but that are tidying up before the archiving sort of process. But our next session, our next training session on Thursday the 19th, come join us again same time. We're going to look at backwards. So this team that we've been working in should be archived then, and we're going to look backwards using Time Machine and all those, how easy it is for people to access using that tool.
Great. So yeah, we have got a few more webinars coming up as part of this series. There's 3 in the series, so feel free to sign up to those as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Is that everything questions wise?
So Andy's just asking, only staff use the Time Machine tool. No, students can use it as well.
Yeah. So we can show that student perspective as well. If you'd like to know more about all the things we talked today, we've touched on loads of different things, our products, Microsoft products, and there's lots of different ways you can get content from us. So the QR code's coming across the screen. If you can pick your platform of choice, we've got Twitter there. You can subscribe to our newsletter, which can be emailed to you, YouTube and Facebook. If you just quickly want to give us a follow on there, because we post lots of videos, especially with new features. If you'd like to learn more about Cloud Design Box, you can see our website up there at the top. We've got an email if you'd like to contact us and have a conversation, and our sales telephone number there as well. So yeah, as we just said, we've got 2 more events coming up. So on the 19th of July, this is very much going to tie into this session. We're going to look at what happens when we get new teams. How can we make the process for teachers easy to get them set up? We've got a few things in place from this session, and then we're going to follow it on and look at what we can do setting up our teams. And then on the 24th of August, we're going to look at empowering educators for the new school year. So there's lots of exciting tools coming through with Microsoft. We want to keep on the ball with that, give everybody a heads up. So if you can attend that too, there might be some new exciting things that you can try out in your teams as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much. So we covered quite a lot of ground this morning. Some really exciting stuff. So I say thanks ever so much for Darren for coming in and helping answer a few questions and add various content as well to the session. And also thank you so much to Tony as well for fielding the questions for us this morning.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah,
no worries.
Thanks, Keith and Joe. Yeah, really good presentation. Hopefully everyone got lots out of that. They've all got our contact details now, and we'll send out a video recording later today.
Excellent. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to wish everyone a real pleasant rest of your day, and we'll say thanks ever so much. And it's goodbye from myself, Keith, and Joe.
Cheers. Have a good summer, everyone.
And hopefully see you all on the 19th of July. Right. Thank you.